Hello, Adab, Namaste. On behalf of DC South Asian Arts Council Inc., I welcome you to tonight's discussion on giving, a social responsibility. I welcome Jan Elliott from Ashiana and Sumani Dash from Help Age India, and tonight's moderator will be Niharika Chiburjo. Before we start tonight's program, I have a quick announcement. Virtual DC SAF 2021 will be held from January 16 to 30th, 2022, and more details will be following very soon. So now I want to introduce tonight's moderator, Niharika Chiburjo. Welcome. I really appreciate your taking the time to moderate today. Is the Deputy Executive Director at the Japan-US Friendship Commission, a federal grant-making agency. Previously, she served as a general manager at Tata Sons North America, the representative office for then 100 billion Tata Group. She administered the company's CSR activities in the United States and Canada and represented the interests of Tata Trusts to government and multilateral institutions. Niharika is also on the board of Yuvati, a youth under voluntary action for transformation India, an Indian-based nonprofit focusing on underserved youth. She is also an award-winning poet and published writer. Here's Niharika.
Thank you so much, Manoj, for the generous introduction. Good evening, everyone. As Manoj said, I am Niharika Chiburjo, and I would like to thank the DC South Asian Arts Council for inviting me today. I'm delighted to be entrusted with this important conversation on giving as a social responsibility. For a long time during this pandemic, we have thought that we were in the same boat as we navigated COVID-19 together. But social and economic inequities have taught us perhaps we are not all in the same boat after all, but we're in the same storm, where we have learned to sustain each other in tangible and intangible ways. So, in this spirit of sustenance, giving, and gratitude, I'm delighted to introduce to you our two wonderful guests who are heroes representing two venerated organizations doing critical work in our communities. I will introduce them to you and then let them introduce their organizations and their work too. First, we have Jaya Elliott. Jaya is the board member of Ashiana. She is an Ayurvedic practitioner and holistic coach. We all need that these days. She joined Ashiana as a volunteer advocate in 2009 and worked with clients to navigate and access social service benefits and community resources with the goal of helping them attain self-sufficiency. Since 2014, Jaya has served as Ashiana's board of directors and currently chairs the Outreach Committee. In this role, she leads community outreach, partnership building, and cultural competency trainings. We also have tonight Sumani Dash, Managing Director of the American Friends of Help Age India. Sumani is a civil society and public policy professional. Previously, she was head of the Confederation of Indian Industry, CII North America Regional Office. Her pivot to the nonprofit sector harkens back to her graduate degree in international relations with a focus on development from the University of Denver. Sumani is also a graduate of Lady Shri Ram College in Delhi, LSR, yay. I'd like to start by asking each of you, Jaya and Sumani, to please introduce your organizations and then, tell us your websites right off the bat, because we want to drive people to your websites. We want people to know what you're doing. And then tell us also a little bit on how we can support your organizations. So Jaya, I'm going to start with you. My understanding is that your organization was established in 1989, and you recently went through a rebranding. So please tell us a little bit about the mission of the organization, how it started, and what the rebranding hopes to achieve.
Sure. Thank you very much, Niharika and Manoj. It's our honor to be here, and I'm so thrilled to be representing Ashiana, formerly Asha for Women. So, like you said, yes, we started in 1989 at a kitchen table, 4 women from India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh, just getting together, chatting, and they realized that they had each other to talk, to share, to vent, to cry, to laugh together, but they had some sisters in their communities who were not that fortunate. They did not work outside the house, they did not have friends, and they were subjected to domestic violence. And that's how Asha was born. Asha, as we all know, as in South Asian, most languages, it means hope. So it was just to provide hope and a platform for these ladies and their children who needed it. And the reason they needed it is because they did not know how to deal with it. So that's how it started, 1989. And over the years, we have been serving around 400 to 425 women every year and about 100 children. And we get, 100 to 125 women and 100 children and about 400 inquiries. This has been kind of the average for the past 32 years. In 2018, we realized there were services needed in other parts of our communities. And that's how our senior service program started. So it was basically to help our seniors and their caregivers to navigate whatever this county, the state offered, to help them socialize. So we would have a chai and chat once in 2 weeks where they just come there and chat. Or then we had Zoom events. Unfortunately, after we got this running, the pandemic happened. And so it all became Zoom. And then as we are moving forward, we realize that it's expanding. It's for every person in the South Asian community. It's not based just to the women and children or the seniors. And that's how Ashiana was born on October 31st of this year. So that was our new avatar. And here we are. So right now we are serving all South Asians, no bias, no discrimination. And our mission basically is to provide and empower South Asians to lead lives that are peaceful, self-sufficient, and to be having a really life of dignity. In short, that's our mission. And we provide this because we come from the community and we can provide services which are culturally sensitive. And as we go forward, and we can all know how important culture is for us.
Right.
Yeah. So in short, that's who we are as Ashiana. If you have questions, one more thing, I just want to let you know,
Yes.
we are a volunteer-based organization. We just have 2 full-time employees and the rest of us, including an 8-member working board and the volunteers, the backbone of our organization.
Thank you so much, Jaya. And I will come back to this later, but this is a perfect segue. I'm glad I structured it this way, that Sumani gets to come in now because you mentioned elder care as well. And Sumani, you're with the American Friends of HelpAge India. And I can safely say that those of us who grew up in India know the name HelpAge India, right? So if we didn't collect money for going door to door, have our little badge we had, and we were collecting money for HelpAge India during elementary school, we definitely purchased Diwali cards from HelpAge India shops and sent those out. But remind us what HelpAge India does and tell us more about the American Friends of HelpAge India.
Thank you, Niharika, and thank you, Manoj, and to the DC South Asia Arts Council for this opportunity. And I'm actually really glad that Jaya also mentioned elder care, of course, but also the word dignity, because I think that at the end of the day is what ties us all together in terms of our mission and mandate. And American Friends of HelpAge India is fairly new to the US market. We've been with a 501c3, but we were set up just in 2019. We realized we're missing a big portion of just being able to get out and get our name out and about our message to the big swath of the Indian American diaspora that I think would be very interested in knowing about and maybe remembering about HelpAge. Like Niharika, you mentioned, a lot of them, I think, people that I talk to have done the school fundraising program. I know I did as a kid. So we basically are fairly recent here and are just starting to ramp up our work and programming. HelpAge India is not a new brand. We've been around for over 40 years in India. So 1978 is when HelpAge was set up. And the primary mission of the organization has been to advance the cause and care of India's elderly so that they can live lives that are active, healthy, and dignified. And we do that through a variety of direct interventions. We have programs in healthcare access. We have a flagship mobile healthcare program that runs across, I believe it's 23 states out of India. We have a livelihoods program that looks at sustainable livelihoods through an elder self-help group concept. We do vision restoration, cataract surgeries. We have disaster response. We run our own 5 model senior care centers. We support about 300 others. So we have just a whole range of activities and programs that are very much geared to elders. During this COVID period, we've been focusing very heavily on COVID-19 vaccine facilitation. I'm actually delighted to report that very recently we received a grant under a larger USAID project that would help us facilitate the vaccination for elders in about 11 states in India. So we're hoping to ramp up that program as well. And all of our work at the end of the day, it's very much about making sure our elders are taken care of. Elder abuse is a big problem in India. I'm sure we'll mention that later as well. But, you're talking about 138 million elders. If you just in pure numeric terms, that's about 40% of the US population. And 90% of those elders are outside of the formal organized sector. So there is no such thing as health insurance or pensions or any kind of social safety net for this huge swath of population. And it's really an invisible sector that of the population that's not talked about. And that's our target segment for HelpAge.
Thank you, Somani. Those are staggering numbers, right? We know things happen, and Jaya, as you mentioned, we hear about things, we hear anecdotally, but when you put it in terms of numbers and statistics, and compare it to the population of the United States, it blows one's mind, and you start feeling, why are we just sitting here? Why aren't we doing anything? But it's very heartening to know that there are organizations like yours out there who are. So in talking to you guys earlier and, listening to you now, I find a few common themes have emerged for me. For instance, both your organizations provide services to excruciatingly vulnerable members of our society. So people experiencing domestic violence, the elderly. And then it's not lost on us from what you said earlier, that these two groups are not mutually exclusive. So, and then, we mentioned the pandemic, which has also had a massive impact on the elderly as well as on domestic violence cases. We can't really ignore the fact that we're addressing these issues in the context of the South Asian community with our shared notions of, shame, respect, what will people say, naak kat gayi, and all of these other obedience, not airing dirty laundry, not behaving too American. I've heard people say, oh, you want freedom, you're too American. You need to sit at home. We don't do that in our community, don't you dare go out. So Jaya, what made Ashiana, at that point, Asha for Women, decide to focus on domestic violence in the South Asian community? You said there were, 4 friends having their chai chat, but what was that trigger? Was it just an idea to have a place to vent and talk, or were there no services available until then, until you guys started this? How was it?
So I wouldn't say there were no services available. So again, just to let you know, ASHA is also an acronym for Asian Self-Help Association. So that's how they brought it on. But there were so many barriers for these women who could not reach. So just to take an example, culture. So our culture is, the South Asian culture, I believe, is one of the best. It sustained us for so many centuries, and it has done so much good for us And we are all examples of what the culture has made us and where it's brought us. But unfortunately, it's a double-edged sword. It can be what deters you. So that is a big barrier, and especially when you live in a culture here in the American society. So the South Asians came here in the late 1800s and 1900s. We have started coming here a long time ago, but we never did get a chance to get into the community, to get our feet really wet and live here. So when this was started, although there are resources, the county, the state provide extensive resources, but this, like you so rightly said, the vulnerable community did not know how to access it. So culture was a big challenge. The other one is language, and we know about languages in South Asian culture. When I talk to people outside of our community, when we do outreach and we speak to first responders, and you just give them an example. Okay, a country like India, 23 main languages, 20,000 dialects. It's mind-boggling. Or a country like Bangladesh, 39 languages. I mean, Bangladesh is the size of the state of Georgia. Just think, when you compare that. So language is a big challenge. For them to even, it's hard to explain what you feel in a language that's alien to you. But if you come to us, our advocates are culturally trained. They have that. They are trained by the county on domestic violence, and they have the cultural sensitivity. Our therapists are from South Asia. So they're more comfortable talking to them. So language was another barrier that was keeping people back. And then the fear of deportation. Everybody is not on a green card or a citizen. Right. And the deportation and then loss of children. If you have children, right, that's a big thing. And we know how important it is in a South Asian community to have a child. And then that's the be all and end all of the woman. You need to keep the family together. Then the family structure, where the patriarchal system, where it's the father-in-law, the brother-in-law, whoever's the oldest, or maybe your son who's old enough. So all that was holding them back, and it was not for reasons that they could not bring it out. It was just that they couldn't do it. It was not done. There's just a denial. And right, then the harassment back home. Maybe your family back home is going to be harassed, because we know how marriages take place in the South Asian culture. It's what we would call an alliance. So it's not just one man and woman or two people getting married. It's the whole village. Right. So you don't know who else is involved in it and who is going to be. So that keeps them quiet. They wouldn't come out and talk. And just hard to reach out for help, because you're in the community. The South Asian community is sustained by the community structure. But then right, who do you talk to? And most importantly, there is just this lack of knowledge of what DV or interpersonal violence is. It is not recognized. We had a client who was being beaten up, and what her mother-in-law told her was, oh, it doesn't matter. It's just for him to get off stress. So what if you get boxed a couple of times? I got it from my father-in-law, or my brother-in-law does it. So that mentality is really hard to get out for somebody. And to give you statistics, in DV, it takes a woman at least 7 times, and this is across the board. I'm not talking South Asian or American, or it's across the board. 7 times before they make the first call. So it's not that you're upset, you pick up the phone, you call your social service organization, right, county, and sometimes an average of 57 attempts before they leave their home if the condition is that bad. So it's just mind-boggling. And 4 out of 10 women in the South Asian community are affected by domestic violence. And this is not even a good statistics, because we don't get to hear about it. So in short, those are the reasons, those were the barriers, and that's why ASHA came into existence. And unfortunately, it's not, we can't say that we are here and we are eradicated right, DV or IPV. No, it's right, still very much here.
And when you mention it again in these staggering terms, like Sumani laid out earlier about the elderly, you realize that these things are going on. They might be going on with somebody and you don't realize it. And the classic, oh, I walked into the door, or I slipped and fell, or something like that. And these are things, and perhaps later you could tell us what to look out for, and as we try to support our communities and our neighborhoods. But and coming back to the issue of the elderly, Sumani, we have learned over time, I'm learning, and as we look at social media and other, digital media, that elderly means different things in different worlds. And there are men and women in their 60s who are running marathons. And there are others of the same age group saying, hum to buddhe ho gaye, and were really old. And I had some kids tell me how they had met this elderly person who was 50. And so where, from the help age perspective, what is the definition of elderly, and when does HelpAge decide that care needs to begin in an elderly context?
So for us, the definition of elders, anybody above the age of 60. I think, like you said, I think the definition might be different in different places. I believe in the US it's 65 and over, but in our case, we take the cutoff, and I think that's also, I don't want to misquote, but I think the Indian government probably also does the same thing. But HelpAge, our definition is 60 and over. And, our target is certainly the more disadvantaged elders in terms of some of the direct interventions, right? Like the access to healthcare. These are people that don't otherwise have access to doctors or being able to go to the medical appointments and things like that. But at the same time, like Jaya was mentioning about, some of, the kind of abuse that, you're all hearing about and such. We have elder distress helplines. These are toll-free helplines that HelpAge India runs. It's on our website. Anybody can go and see what that is. So if anybody's ever in India, in one of the 21 state capitals where we have these helplines that are running, if you see an elder by this, anywhere, say by a railway station or a side of the road that look like they've been abandoned, they're in distress, you can call the helpline, and a HelpAge team will actually show up to help with connecting them to a medical facility, take them to the police, connect them to whatever resources need to be done. And in terms of rehabilitation, we also help them go to a old senior care center if that's what they choose to do. So it's not in every single case that that an elder might be looking for that kind of help. But where it is asked for, HelpAge is always there to provide that. In addition, we also do, for end-stage cancer care, we provide palliative care, we do physiotherapy services. And again, there will be, elders that are from the more, if you so want to say, privileged families that perhaps don't need these kind of services. But the elder distress helplines we have found, especially during the pandemic, our lines are ringing a lot in ways that we had not experienced before. Because again, everybody's at home in quarantine. And in India, again, you don't have maybe some people do, but a lot of people are in very close quarters. And the sense of isolation and really loneliness, I think what we have found, and we did a big study last year, mental health issues amongst elders have gotten exponentially worse as they actually feel more isolated, more lonely. And, so all of this is really connected in terms of why are elder distress helplines suddenly ringing off the hook? And, what's happening with lockdowns and the loss of livelihoods or the loss of earning family members that also did happen in the second wave of the pandemic and even last year and so forth. So there's a lot of additional family pressures that have fallen on elders. We are finding that now there are elders that are also taking care of grandkids, great grandkids in some cases. So basically, HelpAge's mission is to be a resource, to be a support system that does not exist for a whole range of elders that, on first glance may not look vulnerable. Perhaps they have the resources and you would think they have the family support, but you scratch a little bit the surface and the reality looks to be very different. And that's really the role HelpAge is trying to fulfill.
Thank you for that. It strikes one that this is so complicated. Yeah. And, we can sit here and say, well, why don't they just pick up the phone and call? The number is available. Or right. Why don't they just say, and and just trying to put oneself in the mind of the abused person to understand how difficult it is to make that first step, why it takes 57 times, or why does it take 7 times to make a call. And the fact that the phones are ringing is a good sign. I don't view that as, oh my God, so many people need help. It's more this is a good sign that people are reaching out for help. So Mani, do you find, or does HelpAge India try to track, the socioeconomic group of the elders who have been calling during the pandemic? Because I can imagine privileged family elders too, probably might even, I would dare to say, have it worse sometimes in terms of the isolation and abuse and, being given their meals or not, or that kind of thing. It's very insidious abuse.
Yeah. I think I'm not sure that they track it in the sense that, that data is, again, it's also like privacy related issues and so forth.
Right.
So we won't make that public on, who's calling, who's not, and so forth. But, there's also, that stigma of this is what my son or my daughter or my son-in-law or daughter-in-law is doing to me. You don't want that getting out. So it's
Right.
that sort of absorbing that stress and that abuse within the confines of the home, I think, is certainly a cross-cutting theme. And it's a real challenge, and something that, again, with the mental health, we've been working with, I know, the WHO on a mental health project and stuff. These things come up. But I think it's that culture of just staying quiet and dealing with family issues within the family, and don't let it get out, and
Right.
and so forth. So I think there's definitely both privileged and the underprivileged that we get calls from, but it's really a all pervasive issue.
Can I just,
Yeah, go ahead, Jaya. I was going to come to you. Go ahead.
talking about it, it's just across the board. Now, if we take, again, I know we as ASEAN, we serve all South Asians, no matter what the issues. But just going back to domestic violence, in October was Domestic Violence Awareness Month. We get clients from every strata of society. Until I came and I joined Ashiana, I was completely clueless. For me, it was, it happened in some remote village, which I saw in some Bollywood film. But we have clients who are, and most South Asians are pretty well educated. So the ones who come to us, it's mind-boggling. So it doesn't matter what your financial status is. It doesn't matter your education, your upbringing, your family. It's just there. And what I would say is, this is the pandemic that has existed with the arrival of humans on Earth. Right. And it's not been gone. And unfortunately, like everywhere, like the COVID-19 variant, the domestic violence or the violence against your partners has just got morphed into so many different ways. Once upon a time, until we saw the person beaten up black and blue, we didn't realize. We said, oh, that is okay. Okay, now we know, okay, that's violence, domestic, physical violence. But that's not all. There is financial, there's emotional, and now we have new ones, new variants coming up. Technology abuse. We have a client whose spouse has put cameras all over the house during COVID for security reasons. So she cannot even reach out. Or then we have spiritual abuse, where you're not allowed to practice what you want to do. So the abuse has gone into so many spheres. It's harder for people to understand it's abuse. If you're told you're not to go to your place of worship, you don't think of it as abuse, but it is abuse. Or just not giving you your credit card or not giving you cash, that is abuse. Instead of saying, no, I'll buy you, I'll do your shopping. Maybe you think you're being, it's a way of saying, oh, I'm going to be so kind and I'm going to let you relax while I go shopping. Oh no, that's another way of, because abuse is basically power and control, and that can happen with anybody. Whether it's a senior, we get senior clients calling us for help. So again, it's across the board, unfortunately.
Thank you for mentioning that, because we've all heard some story or the other. And I have recently heard also about this credit card abuse that you mentioned, with financial abuse, where the spouse is not working outside the home or chose to stay home to take care of the kids, and then is only given one credit card that is shared, and every purchase can be tracked. So in this case, a woman is not able to buy herself a dress or anything. She can only buy groceries. And then the husband will purchase her clothes. And, and at first it started out as, oh, he's so nice, he takes interest. But then it was this very insidious form of abuse. And that happens with elders. I think it happens at every level. And as you both mentioned during COVID, this is the other pandemic. I remember reading also difficult figures on how domestic violence and abuse has gone up during the pandemic because of just the lockdowns, the loss of work, just all these other stresses.
Yeah. And the perpetrators in the house. So
right, and everybody's in the house. There's no escape.
There's no escape. And for us, the first half of 2020, the calls went down because they couldn't reach out.
Right.
And then it's just shut up. Once you found out there were ways, and it's hard to meet them. Like you said, it's always power and control that's keeping them down. And it could be just in little stages. So domestic violence we call is a pattern of behavior. It's not that one-off thing.
Right.
You may have heard of it. It's the bark comes first and then the bite, and it keeps going that way.
Yeah. Right.
The other thing with the pandemic as well, just, for elders, they were always last in line when it came to being able to access services. Like if you're talking about being able to, get to the hospital to, just go to your medical appointment, and their needs weren't always met anyway, or they're not able to access to begin with. Now with the pandemic, a lot of those avenues that did exist also started closing down. And then you have things like loss of earning family members and additional pressures, loss of livelihoods for themselves. And recovering for that for an elder person is a lot harder once things do start to get normal. So it's, again, lives that were already precarious have gotten worse so. So, and that's where we are, that, we need to figure out ways to really support this very vulnerable community to be able to sustain and, thrive going forward. So I think that very much applies to, I'm sure, all of the domestic abuse victims as well, as much support that we're able to provide. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, that's perfect. I think you guys I'm glad we're all three here together because we seem to be reading each other's minds, because my next question as I was listening to you was going to be about the, access to services and resources and, to support those who need us, to support who you are serving. So imagining that the mindset of, what we've already talked about, mindset of seeking outside help, that in the first place is a huge barrier to accessing services. So, and you guys have both mentioned the types of barriers that you run into at work. How do you soften these barriers? How do you try to, the classic thing of we can't help them unless they want to be helped, but you can't stand by and watch either. Where is there a sweet spot where you're able to, encourage participation or coming into the fold so your organizations can serve them? How do you do that?
So, one is for us, I know advocacy has been a big factor in enabling people to even know what their rights are. Like a lot of elders didn't even know what they're entitled to. So this, I think we were talking earlier about the Maintenance and Welfare of Parents and Senior Citizens Act that was passed in 2007 to make sure elders are taken care of by their families. That's something HelpAge pushed for. We've done a lot of education through our senior care centers and others to, let elders know, hey, you're entitled to XYZ if you have, in your lifetime of working and so forth. Because we also found that once they have those rights, they know what their rights are, they're able to advocate a little better for themselves as well. And then have that the courage to really step up and say, hey, this isn't right. So, and then like I said, we work with a number of senior care centers. We have our elder abuse helplines. We do quite a bit of advocacy publicly through PR. You might have seen some of our movies and ads and things that you might see on TV and so forth. So we try and get the message out as much as we certainly can about what your rights are as an elder and what you should say no to, and have those very strong lines.
Here I'm seeing all this time there was a convergence of issues, and now I'm starting to see a divergence in what you do, Sumani, and what you do, Jaya, because it seems to me that Sumani's advocacy can be out loud, in your face. You have the elders, and they've taken care of you, and you have to take care of them, and use the grandparent analogies, and
Yes.
how can you Chachaji and Dadaji and whatnot, and how can you let them be like this?
Yeah.
Your work, Jaya, and the people you serve, by definition, have to be kept safe and quiet. And you can't go out with a big foghorn and yell at every South Asian household, if you have a DV case in here, come to us. So how do you issue your loud voice in a whisper? How do you do that?
That's the poet in you. Okay, that's a lovely way of putting it, loud voice in a whisper. And that's exactly what we do. So first and foremost, just to give you a little idea of how our program works, we have a helpline, which is confidential. And you know how important it is in our communities. Because again, for us, being from the community is a plus point. But again, we are from the community. So for them to feel confident that we're not going to go back and speak to their, like you said, chachi or friends, and it's going to be all over. So confidentiality is so important. We have a client services manager who mans our helpline. No volunteers, nobody. And she's been with the organization 30 years. So she is the first line. Where you call, it goes to her. And then we also, and from there, it's then disseminated and the plan is made. So we always work with the client. We do not tell them what to do, because that is what they have been told all their life. Do this, don't do that, don't do this. So the first thing to empower them is for them to be given options, and we guide them. So you have option A, option B. What would you like? So once we learn about the issues, we determine what they are, and then we develop a plan with the client and try to implement it. So it could be emergency, immediate help that they need. Maybe they need to be taken out of their home. We don't own a shelter. We are a very small organization. And like I said, we put in every penny we get right back into it. 96% of our earnings goes right back into the program for our clients. But if they need it, we do put them up in a hotel overnight. We try and find a shelter. We work with the county. We work with other social organizations. After that would be the emergency. And then we do long term. So we give them whether they need therapy. Again, that's a big, big chunk of change, because therapy is not one-off. It is a lot of sittings. You have to go deep there. Then they need lawyers. It's hard to get lawyers. Maybe you'll get a protective order, because that's a one-shot thing. But then if it goes to family law, we have a client like today, all day we were struggling to find a lawyer for her family law case, because she's been handed a summons saying the husband is going to get full custody. He's a big shot. He has a lot of money. He's got this big gang of lawyers. So we've been struggling all day. Honest to goodness, today whole day was spent calling up firms, because it's a very expensive business once you get into the family law. So once we have that, and that's where we go with the case management part. The way we do the whispering is by awareness programs. Like here we are today. Thank you again so much for having us here, just letting our name out there. All we want is to talk, and believe me, we talk.
Right.
Whoever invites us. So we are talking to the first responders, because we need to tell them about the cultural sensitivity. And then we are talking to other social organizations. We go to houses of worship. Whether we invited or not, we go there, we hand out cards, we leave our flyers, because you never know. A little card is handy for a person to put it. And it's also called a shoe card, because they can tuck it into their shoes and nobody knows it's there. So it's really tiny, just the website, the helpline, and they can go for it. And partnerships. Like I said, we work with the other organizations. So all the county organizations, we have our name there on their website. Their hotline members know about our existence. The clients, they know, the counselors know about us, and we work together. It's a hard, long way, and sometimes it's very disheartening. But once in a while, we do get successes, and that keeps us going. And hopefully, it'll be what happens more. And it's very much word of mouth. We could sit here and talk for 10 hours, but
Right.
generally it's a friend who may have heard today, or then we would earlier, before pandemic, we would go to any cultural organization, whether it was a Diwali celebration or a Eid Mela. We would have a little table. More often than not, nobody would come to us, but maybe there may have been one person who needed it and who saw it and walked by. Doesn't matter. So we try and just put ourselves out there wherever we can.
Thank you. Thank you, Jaya. You know, that, so what you're essentially saying is that it builds a community. So what you're doing just by showing up or being here today, you know, I know about your work. Sumani knows about your work now, and we can go tell people in our communities.
Mhm.
But we're empowered to do that. And these women or people or others who are not, who've seen that and keep walking, are able to whisper to somebody else who's able to whisper to somebody else. And so that's how you build support and you build a community. And so I'm seeing, you know, that people can help each other, even though you might not be out saying stuff, but if you were once, then someone heard it and told somebody else. Sumani, how can elders help each other? You know, is there some kind of help age program that puts elders in touch with each other so they can help and support each other? Is there anything like that?
Well, so our senior care centers certainly are a huge community, very close knit. They celebrate every milestone, and I know we're talking a lot about abuse and all of that, but I also don't want to take away their agency and the fact that a lot of them are very empowered. I actually just got all these pictures from all of the Diwali celebrations that they all did together, and all the wonderful rangolis and the diyas and so forth. But apart from that, we have actually a very strong elder self-help group concept, which actually HelpAge has pioneered. And basically, at say like a village level, you get a number of elders to come together and figure out what is a sustainable source of income that you can look at where you are, which is contextually relevant, which makes sense for your setting. And so HelpAge would then provide some of the seed money, help them connect to the market, to access credit, and really to try and scale it up. So we have about, I don't want to say, it's about 8,400 such self-help groups, and over about 100,000 odd elders have been empowered through these groups. So that way, I think a lot of elders feel at that age when you've lost your livelihood, you feel like a burden on your family and your community, and nobody wants to feel that way. So to be able to also be a support system for each other, it's a very powerful thing. So we've had some very great success stories where some of these elder self-help groups have become economically sustainable, and they have actually gone on to help others as well. So there are some really powerful examples in this elder self-help group concept.
Wonderful. Thank you. And so, just before I let you go on this subject, are there any overlaps in elder care challenges between, India and the United States?
So there are some overlaps, but there's also there's challenges across the board. Like I have personally seen some of the senior care centers that are here in the US. It's cost prohibitive for a lot of people. Getting full-time nursing care is extremely expensive, and I personally knew this is kind of the heart of why I'm doing what I'm doing. Somebody I know from way back when I was a graduate student, just somebody I befriended, ended up in a nursing home, and where you were mixing, she's perfectly lucid, very smart as a whip, 85-year-old, and you were being mixed with people that had completely like mental health issues. And that's a great way, by the way, to push somebody in the path of decline if they weren't there already. So, I've seen examples like that here. So yes, it might look like we have all of the infrastructure and resources, and it's a very rich country, but where the support for the most vulnerable of our society sometimes becomes lacking. And it's also the training that our care providers have, what care providers make themselves. And these are also issues that you see echo, in India. And then, in India, of course, you have the complete lack of a social safety net for a lot of people, which kind of is compounding that lack of, just resources and having any kind of a support structure at a time in your life where you're not able to support yourself, and
Right.
it's something to help you through those last years. So yes, there are overlaps, there's divergences, but certainly it's a challenging scenario in different ways.
It's a new universal thing. You mentioned decline, and I've been hearing from friends in India, and Jaya, maybe you've noticed this in your work as well. We can't talk about anything anymore without mentioning what the pandemic has done. So, coming back to the pandemic, I'm hearing from friends regarding their very elderly parents in India that after having witnessed their friends and peers passing away, they have gone into decline themselves with this, losing their will, just not, and these are people of means who have kids who look after them, kids who are abroad, who are flying back, and sending me messages saying, I'm just trying to cheer up my mom. So are you seeing, Jaya, even in your work, when that it's a huge mental health toll on top of everything else that your clients are experiencing? Or is there a giving up type of feeling that you're witnessing because of the pandemic?
I wouldn't say giving up, but there is that feeling of what next? You just feel you've hit bottom and there is no way up. And this is there with not just our women and who are impacted by domestic violence, but with the seniors who call us too. And we were so happy when we could do the Zoom functions, and just once a month we would have a Zoom activity. And to tell you, so we tried to be very, very trying to give knowledge kind of thing. So we had a financial guy once, then we had a nutritionist. There were the normal number of people. And then one Zoom event, we had Bollywood dancing. Believe me, we had the highest audience. It was packed, and it was so nice to see everybody getting off their chairs and just doing it. So the socialization part is so important.
Right.
But yes, there is that feeling of, how much longer, how to hold on. We had a client who's a daughter who called us from another country saying she couldn't get in touch with her dad. And fortunately for us, we could work with the local social service organizations and the county, and we found him. And he was so isolated. He had just cut himself off from everybody. And unfortunately, in that state of mind, somebody at the place of worship he was going to had befriended him, taken off his credit card, taken off his phone, and he was just there. But one of those good stories where we could be found, and right now he's back with the daughter. But that it is so true. It has happened. It's happened with our domestic violence clients too. They are feeling desperate. So we try and keep in touch. Our advocates try and work hard. We have a support group for them, which is run by a psychiatrist. So she gives them the platform to talk. And it feels much easier when you're talking. It's a safe space and nobody is judging you. And for us, that's the most important part of that, Shiana. We do not judge, because we have not walked in your shoes. And that's what we tell people. Even if you hear of somebody, it's so easy to say, why, like you just said, why can't they make the call? She can pick up the phone. She has a cell phone. Now, please don't judge. You don't know.
Right.
Even if you walk in her shoes, you will not know what she's thinking. Unfortunately, that's it. Yeah, the pandemic has been a big challenge, and life in general. Just too much going on for everybody.
It really is. Sumani, what are you seeing?
Well, like I said, the lives of folks that were already on the margins already had whole range of issues just got so much worse. And not being able to then tap into what might have been your support system, maybe some of your friends or other folks in your community, then that are no longer there, it certainly takes a toll. Everybody, I think, needs to be able to vent and talk. If nothing else, I think that will get you through the day, right? Things don't seem quite as bad. If I have a close group of friends that I can text, and we'll get it out, whatever it is. And if you start losing that, and at that, like for elders especially, your circle's already small, and once it starts shrinking and shrinking, and then who are you left with, especially when your kids are out working, your grandkids are busy with their own lives. And I think we really honestly don't realize the level of loneliness that elders feel. And that's why we encourage people to think about elders as their grandparents. We are all, most of us, I would say, well, maybe that's not right either, but a lot of us that came here left our family, extended networks behind. And this is our chance to give back and help those that don't have anybody else to look to. And for us also, just for those who do have networks and family and relatives in India, please call them. Just pick up the phone, maybe write a letter. You just don't know how much of a difference that 10-minute, 5-minute conversation makes in the life of that elder. It might be what gets them through the day. So that's the only sort of thing that I think can really help. We really have to look out for each other. So
that's an important, very important message. Pick up the phone. Everybody who's watching this tonight, and your parents in India are awake, your grandparents are awake, just pick up the phone and call them. And it's easier than ever to do that. I know we're coming up on the end of our hour, but we still have time for a couple more questions. And so I don't want to give up the opportunity to have you guys address those.
Niharika, may I just jump in about this? So yes, picking up the phone, I just wanted to bring it right away.
Yeah.
If you know of somebody who has been impacted of domestic violence, please think twice before you pick up the phone to that particular person, because you don't know the circumstance they are in at that time. So be very careful. That's something we always talk about, the safety issues and the red flags. Be aware of it. The best thing for you to do is just let the person know you're there to support them. You're not judging them. They are not alone. They are not at fault. And they are not the guilty person. But reach out to organizations like us or the county or the first responders.
Right.
Please do not try to, that's the human nature. You want to go and help. But helping in this case could be the wrong thing to do. Get information, get some knowledge, get yourself well trained before you do something like that.
Thank you for that, Jaya. Again, you read my mind, because my question was going to be, as a community, what can we do to help you guys in your work? What can the community do directly? What sort of resources do your organizations need that the people who are watching this live right now or tune in later, to watch at their leisure during work or something? What can we do to support your organizations? And then more broadly, or more specifically, what can we do as members of the community to help our elders, or to keep an eye out for someone we might think, as you mentioned, if you think they are experiencing some kind of abuse, then don't call at once, or call the cops or anything like that. Be gentle in your approach. But are there any other concrete things you think we should be thinking about?
Well, for us, certainly we're trying to, like I said, we're for American Friends of HelpAge India, we're very much at trying to scale up our presence here in the US. So anybody who's watching, please spread the word. Our website is www.af-hi.org. And you can learn about our programs, what we do. Any questions, feel free to send them our way. We'd love to look at chapters, etc., in different cities going forward. There's I think there's a lot that we can do. We've had some engagement with school kids as well, and we're hoping to work more on that. So any ideas, fresh thoughts, folks that like to engage with us, even when they go back to India, if you'd like to go visit a HelpAge site, maybe look at how some of our mobile health programs run, maybe visit a senior care center, obviously post-pandemic. Those are things that we'd welcome, and we'd love to engage and just have a conversation. I'm here. I think our information's hopefully up there, and would very much love to talk to anybody who's interested in our mandate and mission.
Jaya?
Yeah, the same for us goes. We have our website. It's www.ashiana.org. There you are. It's right there. And for us too, like I said, we are a very small organization with a huge mission, because South Asians are growing in population. And now I think for 5 years between 2012 and 2017, we grew by 40%. And now I'm sure everybody knows it's gone way, way, way higher. And the issues are not going anywhere. It's there and it's growing. And we have, the first generation, we have the 1.5 generation. So we have so many issues coming up, not just with domestic violence. And we need every resource we can get, whether they're lawyers, doctors, health professionals, just anybody. And now with the new population of Afghanistan coming in, we are already getting calls and cases. And that's a whole different ballgame, because we have to learn the culture. We're trying to help them, and they need everything. Once upon a time, the South Asians who came here were well educated. That's not the case now. Now we have to go right from the language of speaking in English, which is not their language at all, not even in what you would call a Hinglish or one of those, with the Afghan accent. No, it's basically no language. So we do need help. Please, it takes more than a village to help. And they are a community. They are a family. We have to be talk to people. If you hear anything, reach out to us. Go to our website. You're welcome. I think my email is also there. I'm here. Anybody from the organization, we are all volunteers. We are looking for volunteers to spread the word. Anything anybody can do, we are more than happy, because we are stretched thin, and it's just getting harder and harder by the day to catch up.
Well, thank you for that. And on the question of getting hard, before I let you both go, because we're coming up on the end of our time, I am going to switch to a question that you probably have not given thought to and were not expecting me to ask. So this is the trick question. You are both in vocations that involve caring for what I mentioned as excruciatingly vulnerable people in our society. What toll does that take on your emotional well-being, and how do you care for yourselves? So Sumani, you're a mom, working mom of young children and working in this very intense space. What do you do? How are you taking care of yourself in the pandemic?
Yeah, I gotta say, my kids are a pretty good outlet. They're so cute. So I think just devoting time to family, and family is number one priority wise, and that's a good avenue to de-stress. And I have to say, I mean, here I'm really trying to build a brand, do the fundraising, all of that. The hard part's really being done by my colleagues, but I'm getting all of these, cases of abandonment and abuse and, things like that. And it's really, at the end of the day, it's also the stories of joy and optimism and hope and I think that's what is, essential message for caring for elders. And I think I have to keep continuously focusing on that. So that's what keeps me going.
Wonderful. Jaya, what about you?
So I think for us, for all of us who do social work of any kind, whether you're helping the seniors, children, anybody, self-care is first. I always bring in the analogy of the airplane oxygen mask. Mm-hmm. Put yours on first, because you're useless otherwise. Mm-hmm. And yes, we do get some really good results, few and far between, but they keep us going. And there is no way, somebody has to do it. And we've all coming here, at least with my colleagues at Ashiana, we are all here. Most of us have this is our full-time job. And when I say full-time, it's 24/7. It's not an 8 to 5, 9 to 6 job. We are here just because we believe in the mission. And it's not because we feel that we are going to have good results. This is a job you do without any expectation of a result for your client. Maybe it won't happen. It could take years. We have clients who've been with us for 15, 20 years and finally got the result they want, not what we want, because we don't know what is best for them. But and the community has been pretty good. We have had some fantastic collaborators with us, our partners, some of our donors, some of our community members have been with us for the 30 plus years. And that keeps us going. Just talking and finding out somebody who you can help, whatever little bit you do, whether it's a child. We had a student call us, I think about 6 months ago. She called and she said, I want to volunteer. And I said, sure, how old are you? 18 and above. And we do take little young ones. They help us with some kind of administrative job. She said, no, you helped my mom 15 years ago. That was, I'm sorry, I get emotional. That was so heartening to hear. So, we are trying to break the abuse cycle, and this was the best. There it is. So she knows she's not going to be either a victim or a perpetrator, because we don't know how domestic violence will show up in the next generation. So that's it. Just those little, just keep going. And, people like you and Manoj and all giving us a platform and hopefully helping out, even if somebody hears and say, okay, this is not too bad. I'm not the guilty person. I have a way of finding things.
Well, I don't think there's a better note to end on than a note of hope. And I'm not leaving this conversation depressed. I'm leaving it, I may have arrived a little skeptical and depressed about, oh my gosh, this is, how is it going to go? But I'm leaving optimistically and with hope and, offering you my best wishes to keep bending toward the sunlight and staying in the path of hope. So thank you so much for being here today. Thank you to Manoj, to the DC South Asian Arts Council, and again to Sumani and Jaya for the yeoman's work that you're doing to keep our society's heart in its right place. So thank you very much. Manoj, the mic is yours.
Thank you. Thank you to all three of you. And Niharika, you really brought up some really good discussions. And even I learned a lot. I became so conscious, and I was thinking just myself about this subtlety of control, power and control. So thank you. First of all, next week, everyone knows is Thanksgiving. It is the season we come together and thank for what we have. I want to thank both the organizations from my heart for the important work you are doing. To all your volunteers, to your whole organization, God bless them and give them more energy, because we need people like you. We need good Samaritans who can take care of our own in our own society. So thank you to both of you. Thank you, Niharika. And before I end, I'll just want to quickly announce our upcoming events. One is on Monday, November 22nd. It's on digital nomading with Nora Dunn, who's a professional hobo. And then followed by that in January 16 to 30th is our virtual DC South Asian Film Festival, which we had to delay it a little bit of 2021. And but those are the two announcements. But thank you, all of you. Have a very, very happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving.
Take good care of yourself, safe, and as I say in the end always, life is short. Have fun and have no regrets.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Sumani. Thank you, Jaya.